Wow. You guys have some fans. Okay. So welcome, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to have our panelists. We have an amazing group, as you guys know, apparently, of speakers for this session. And so I'm going to have you just kind of go down the line and introduce yourselves, your organization, what your role is. And I want you to just also, as you're introducing yourselves, very briefly tell us what is your biggest current challenge when it comes to meeting the needs, the demands of either your employees, or for some of you, it'll be more relevant to talk about your customers today. And I'm gonna start with you, Neela.
Hi, I'm Neela Campbell, VP of People at Hims and Hers. I would say our biggest challenge right now is looking at our demographic as being, we're full remote. We have all over the different geographies and different ages and life stages, and kind of constantly designing and redesigning a benefits package and offerings that really can meet people where they're at.
Hello, my name is Kelly McMahon. I am the VP of Organizational Effectiveness at Equinix, the world's largest digital infrastructure provider. And I think we're facing a lot of the same challenges that you've probably heard people talk about today. In that we are sitting at the intersection of one of the greatest technology transformations of all time. And so when you think about what it takes to actually manage AI workloads and the demand on compute power and space and energy, we serve our customers in enterprise and hyperscaler, and so we are trying to meet that demand.
That made me feel a little stressed out. The biggest transformation ever. I'm Heather Ostrowski, and I'm the Senior Director of Global Benefits at Keysight Technologies. We're headquartered up in Santa Rosa, California, but we are 16,000 people around the world. And our biggest challenge right now, my biggest challenge is our population. So I mentioned in Santa Rosa, so the campus that we sit on is about 200 acres, and we're a spinoff from HP. And so we have people who have been there for 35, 40, 45 years. We have a 90-year-old still working there, all the way to the 20-year-old who just started sits next to me wanting to find basketball teams to play with. And so how do we hit everybody and make sure everybody is heard? At lunch today, I sat with one of our partners and we were talking about that and how do we get all the employees to feel heard on what their needs are and convince the executives that it's a really good idea to spend those $5 million.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Burns. I am a benefits solution consultant at Benepass. Benepass is a modern, intuitive spending accounts platform that supports both U.S. and global pre- and post-tax spending accounts. Cool. I'm so happy I get to go after you because, when I think about the biggest challenge our customers face, it is usually what you just described, being able to do more with less when there's limited budget, but providing benefits that meet all employees' needs across multiple generations. So ultimately, I think it's helping employers find budget, repurpose funds, think about providing those benefits in a unique and different way, since this has become a bigger challenge. So, yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Perfect. And I'm Ellie Smith. I am a physical therapist at Sword Health, and we are a digital physical therapy company. I would say the biggest challenge I think our customers face is raising awareness of the program. We're doing something new at Sword. We were actually just talking about it, but digital PT is kind of a new frontier. And so raising awareness to the 90-year-olds. This is a program that they can successfully do as we're kind of changing how healthcare is working. And then raising awareness and then getting people enrolled. 1 in 2 people have an musculoskeletal pain problem. And so raising awareness, getting them enrolled in the program, and then helping them be successful.
Okay, I kind of want to know what the 90-year-old does at the company first.
So he's a wicked engineer that it's really hard to hire talent to do what he's learned to do over 90 years, and also convincing him to try to train somebody else.
That is incredible. Okay, let's dive in because there's a lot to dive into. Neela, I want to start with you. I think probably everybody is pretty familiar with your company. It's a telehealth platform, basically. And as you were saying earlier backstage, the company's really distributed, entirely remote, and that's great for a lot of people, but also presents some inherent challenges, including, as we've all seen over the last few years, Zoom fatigue. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the challenges and how you're meeting them today?
Absolutely. So yeah, Zoom fatigue, we've all been affected by it during COVID, and now we continue to stay in that world at Hims and Hers. And I think what we learned quickly was about really working to be intentional about the way that we are operating as a remote first company. So intentional could look like, minimizing your meetings to make sure they're only the ones that need to happen, and versus an asynchronous approach. That might sound simple, but I think when you put it in action, it can be very impactful and valuable. I think there's also a world where, focus time and blocking calendars and respecting people's boundaries is something that's very paramount and important. So you never feel like you're just constantly on the clock, which I think is how a lot of people felt during COVID when we first kicked off, all being remote. And we also understand the importance of that in-person connection and building those relationships. And we don't discount that at all. We have an incredible employee experience team that works really hard to make sure we're able to meet and have impactful conversations, and cross-functional groups can get together and work through tough problems. And then when you do go back to your home and you dial in, you're more likely to, ask about how the kids are doing or your vacation and things like that, and keep that personal connection there as we build and grow and stay at the company for years and years.
Anything else that's come up kind of more recently, I guess, like COVID aside, push that to the past, that's that you're tackling now as a result of being virtual?
I think it's not for everybody. And I think some people think it sounds great and they come in and they join the company, and they can find out that it's not the work or it's not the people, but it's just that remote first culture that can be challenging, and it can cause some people to turn over, and it's not for everybody. So I think knowing what is for you and like what you're able to manage is also an important piece of it. And so it is continuing and evolving, but I think that we've found it to just be incredibly positive for our business and for allowing us to have just this flexibility and opportunity opened up when we made the decision to do a full remote company.
By the way, any of your organizations fully remote as well? Yeah. And does this resonate? Are you seeing other challenges?
So we started fully remote, and since Benepass came to be, we've actually opened hubs in WeWorks. So if employees maybe want to have that type of work environment, they can go into our main locations.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit more diverse approach in terms of meeting employees' needs on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
By the way, Neela, for you guys, about how many employees?
We're just about 2,000.
Okay. It's a pretty sizable, fully remote company. Okay, Kelly, let's move on to you. And by the way, feel free to jump in at any point. You don't have to go one by one, but I will for now. So you mentioned this huge transformation that everybody is starting to, or various stages grappling with, and some of the opportunities and the challenges that come with that. One of the things that I know is top of mind for you is cognitive load. Can you just describe a little bit more about what that looks like amongst your employee base? And let's also talk about the role of technology in both sort of, creating that and also in helping to alleviate some of it.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'll try to navigate my own cognitive load to give you a precise answer, but I think maybe I'll speak about it in terms of the role that I have, and the work that me and my team is doing, and then I'll talk about it a little bit me personally and the journey that I've been on as a leader over the course of the past year. So one of the things that my team is helping look at is actually the successful adoption of AI use cases in the enterprise, right? And I think this is something that every enterprise is grappling with. I heard, some of the conversations earlier where that is not just a technology play, but it is a massive people play, right? And so when you were talking about the 90-year-old who won't, train, I mean, this is real, right? It's like AI adoption to successfully land that is a massive exercise in change management. We're sitting here talking about all the jobs that AI is going to take or all the jobs that are under threat from AI. And then we're like, but by the way, adopt it, right? Like, I mean, that's a massive exercise in change management. So that's some of the work that my team is thinking about is how do you really articulate the case for AI and then actually successfully implement it, which is that actually harnessing the power of AI actually augments the human capability and the power of human in doing work that really makes a difference and really matters. And so on some level, yes, of course, may take tasks, but will also elevate decision-making and capacity in humans to do really, sort of strategic and meaningful work. So that's some of the work that my team is doing, which when I sort of think about my priorities, it's like a giant gulp because we're trying to pioneer what everybody's trying to sort of pioneer and land. And so when you think about, you heard the panel previously talk about all of the change is our new constant, right? That's a tremendous load for workers and leaders to carry. And you would have heard about, okay, well, there are people thinking about strategies for greater resilience or, how to navigate that burnout. And we're thinking about that too. And there are people probably smarter than me thinking about some of the well-being components of that. But I've also had the chance to go on a personal journey over the course of the past year as a leader, knowing all the things I know about what we're trying to accomplish, with the adoption of AI and technology, and just the cognitive load that technology places, in addition to all of the things that we're trying to navigate at home and life, right? And so how many of you are working parents? A whole bunch of you. And so you got school emails and swim lessons and soccer practice and Teams messages and text messages and phone calls and meetings and grocery shopping. I mean, pick your poison. And, I'm fortunate in that I have a husband who can really help take some of that load off, but not all of us do. And I hit a wall. And in fact, I was doing some of the data on the way over here and asked Copilot to tell me how many Teams messages I had sent and received in the past week to date, which today's Tuesday. Any guesses on how many Teams just Teams, not Slack, not email, not text, not meetings, not phone calls. Any guesses on number of Teams messages sent and received in 2 days? Day and a half, actually. How much? 405. I then asked Copilot to tell me how many I had sent year to date. Any guesses on that? Almost 20,000. Almost 20,000. 19,920. That's just one piece of technology. And so when you think about when we talk about burnout, when we talk about cognitive load, if you just assume that one message takes 1 second to send and receive, which we know it doesn't, right? Probably takes way more than that. That's over 19,000 times that your attention has been diverted. And so when we talk about, focused work and Zoom fatigue, that's what we're talking about. We got to put data behind, the cognitive switching, and we don't multitask. The reality is you stop thinking about one thing and you start thinking about another, right? And so I hit a wall in May as a leader. And my boss said to me, "I'm worried about you." I said, "I'm worried about me too, actually." And it got to the point where I actually had to withdraw for a couple weeks because I was so burnt out on the cognitive load of being a mom. I've got toddlers, of being a leader. And my boss said to me, "You need to set better boundaries." And I said, "All due respect, this job is not a job that can be done in 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day." And he said, "Then I want you to think about what's not getting delivered because you're going to set better boundaries." And this is I think the role that all of us can play, not only in supporting our teams, but also in having agency and empowering ourselves to say, it starts with us. And I took a hard look at my calendar and how and where I was spending my time and set very clear guardrails for what I would and would not do. And of course, we all flex where needed, but start with preservation of the time, start with your priorities. I lost a very close friend in July. And when you're faced with your own mortality in that context, you get real clear about what matters. And it is not 400 Teams messages or all the text messages. It is, family, it is friends. And so we gotta start with ourselves and having agency and empowering ourselves to carve out where we're going to invest our energy and effort and focus on our own well-being first.
And you were so prolific and profound that your microphone came off. I just want to ask a quick follow-up, Kelly. I mean, going back to the AI topic, are you confident? Are you wary of this actually being something that ultimately at some point in the future can really help with alleviating that cognitive load versus becoming yet another thing that people need to do, engage with, learn?
I do, but it will take a little bit of cognitive load to get there, right? I think we have to invest in enabling and teaching people how to learn, how to engage with the technology, how to leverage it to be most effective. But I think we also have the opportunity to experiment. And so I use Copilot to summarize my emails at the start of every day. I don't prioritize reading all my emails. I figure if someone really cares and they haven't heard from me, they will email me again, right? And so I think this is all about making trade-offs and leveraging technology, but we got to start with a learning mindset. You heard the panel talk about that before. We got to start with being open to experimentation and open to change. And then learn from others. There are a lot of people who leverage technology in really meaningful ways. This is where I think some of our younger workforce, there's a running joke, right, that we're using it to, create Zoom backgrounds, and Gen Zs are building businesses with AI, right? So we have an opportunity to learn from others as well.
Ellie, do you mind if I go to you real quick just to stick with the technology and AI theme? Can you just tell a little bit more about what you guys are actually doing now? I'm assuming when you became a physical therapist, this isn't what necessarily the career roadmap you had in mind, but just tell everybody a little bit about that because I think it pertains to what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a PT. When I went to school, I assumed I'd probably be working in a traditional PT clinic in person for my entire career. But I ended up at Sword Health where we're doing that care virtually. The way that we're able to provide that care is that all of our members will work one-on-one with a PT. We have several different products, but that PT has the background relevant to work with patients in those products. And then we ship out technology for each one of our programs. So in our digital musculoskeletal pain program, which is our biggest program, we send all of our members out a ThrivePad, which is a tablet essentially. And the tablet is loaded with technology that actually analyzes our members' motion. So they're able to perform their PT at home and get biofeedback for each rep of each exercise. So as our patients are doing squats, let's say I do a squat and I lean too far forward, the screen will actually light up and I'll get cues to actually stand more upright as I'm doing my exercises. And then before and after my session, we actually have an AI clinician called Phoenix, and she'll ask that patient how they're feeling. So she'll be like, hey, Ellie, how are you feeling today? How was your knee pain after your session last time? And let's say I say, oh, it's actually not feeling that good. She can actually adjust my session down a little bit, take away a couple reps. And then she'll also check in with me after the session and then give me that feedback for each rep of each one of my exercises. And then all that information goes back to my PT. So my PT is actually controlling everything. So my PT before I did my session said, okay, to make it lighter, we can get rid of a couple reps with each exercise. Or if we want to make it harder, we can add, a couple reps of these specific exercises. So the PT is there controlling all of those, all of the aspects of the care, but the AI is there just to enhance that member experience. And then the AI is also there for our PTs because that AI is there to gather the information from that patient exercise session and then give it back to the PT who can then look at it, review it quickly, and then reach out, check in, send the member or patient a message, and then adjust the program depending on what's clinically indicated. So that is how we're able to do that care virtually to such a high level because the AI is there to analyze the motion, enhance that member experience, and then give that PT all the information they need to provide that care virtually.
How would you summarize the reaction from both clients that are now starting to use this and from the PTs that you guys work with, that you employ?
It's a new way of doing things, and I'd say oftentimes clients can be a little afraid of AI making the decisions because we're in healthcare. Like, I am making all the decisions. I am deciding the exercises that I want my patients to do, how we can, add on a session and different things like that. So I think just explaining what we're actually doing with AI, that AI clinician is not making any decisions about that patient, and they're just there to really make the experience more fun because they're giving you cues, they're checking in with you, and then as a PT, it's wonderful because I can get even more information on how the experience went. We didn't used to have those pre and post session conversations. We've actually evolved as AI has evolved. But having those conversations has been really helpful because it gives me even more information. Because not everyone's gonna send me a message letting me know how things felt, but if they can have a conversation afterwards, and then I can get that information, it just shows me even more information as to how my patient's doing, which then helps me provide better care and make appropriate adjustments and different things like that.
Can I make a comment
ahead,
about
of
that?
course.
So we're a client, and it solved so many items for us. Number one, musculoskeletal is our number 2 highest claims or highest cost to the company. And so Sword swooped in, and we have, in the US, we have about 6,000 employees, so we have about 1,000 people using Sword, and we've had 29 people report they no longer needed surgery that they needed before. So that's an awesome savings for the company, but of course also amazing for them. In addition, 14 hours per employee saved by doing the digital physical therapy either at home or at night and on the weekends versus driving to and from. And then I think it was something like 14% productivity increased per employee because of the relief of not trying to have the cognitive load of, okay, my appointment's at 1 and I need to be able to drive there, and then I need to be able to have somebody pick up my kids, and all of the different elements that you're trying to juggle. We've had amazing feedback about the SWORD program, and it was really great timing that we got to be on the panel together because we're trying to roll out some more of the items that SWORD has, and so this has been a really awesome partnership. From a benefits perspective, I highly recommend it.
Could you have asked for a better advertisement?
I know, it was perfect.
Yeah, this
Amazing
was.
stat drop.
Before we move on, any other thoughts on the cognitive load piece and what you're seeing from your employees and customers and/or customers?
I
Please.
can talk all day. So for the cognitive load, one area that we have found to be a bit of a unicorn, it was marketed as elder care, child care solution. It's a concierge care. And I know that there's vendor exhaustion when you have too many to choose from. How do you communicate who needs what? But we've realized that there's solutions out there that can act as your personal assistant. So whether it's you need backup care for your kids, you need backup care for your parents, or you need to figure out how to navigate Medicare, or find a tutor for your child, or a college counselor. There's all of these things that you can sign up with to get cases for, and then have somebody be your project manager and be your executive assistant. And we found that it's starting to lighten that cognitive load for people so that they can focus on their work and feel like they have somebody taking care of this for them, which is in addition, and it's AI related because it's an online platform, but you do get assigned a person, but that it's definitely helping to relieve that.
I have something to add too.
Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, so thinking about cognitive load, thinking about the expansion of wellness, maybe originally it was physical fitness, but that's evolved to other types of wellness pillars. I have had many conversations with healthcare industry who oftentimes have the highest level of burnout, close to tech as well. And what I found interesting about what those companies are doing is expanding wellness to also include food delivery services, maid house cleaning services, because if you can easily offload those tasks that many working parents do, then the cognitive load also kind of moves off. So I've seen an increase of employers expand their definition of wellness to include some of those home health care chores. So.
Well, I guess that gets to the vendor exhaustion, though. So, is there a solution to that or solutions to that? How do you guys manage that?
Gets to vendor exhaustion. So when we think about Benepass, oftentimes we're actually a replacement of other vendors because what we do from a customizable spending accounts platform is we actually consolidate a budget to one card. And then we work with the employer to put parameters around how employees can choose to use those benefit dollars. And so essentially what the employee has access to is a benefit amount that they can then choose to spend their money on. And so sometimes it's physical fitness, sometimes it's emotional health, oftentimes it's, like I mentioned, the food delivery services or groceries. Those continue to rise. Backstage, we were talking about the rising cost of Folgers coffee. So I don't know if anyone's a Folgers drinker, but really expensive nowadays with inflation.
You were saying it's $18 for like a small, yeah.
Yeah. So when we think about the actual costs of implementing vendors, we work with employers to increase their budget by future cost avoidance by consolidating different types of eligible benefits to MetaPass.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just one strategy, right? When I think about like the challenges that customers are facing and the challenges that employees are facing, and with the introduction of new technologies and new talent practices and philosophies, and I mean, everything has become so complex, right? I mean, I think about my job 8 years ago, and there used to be some easy buttons. Like the job was hard, but there were some easy buttons. And today there doesn't feel like there's any easy buttons, right? And so I think part of what our role is, and whether it's you're doing vendor management or whether it's you're creating employee or customer experiences, is like to think about like how do we make this simple, right? And our current CEO said something, I've used it in a panel before, but it totally resonates, which is that simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. And I think we've become so like, all right, how do we think about the more complex, the more sophisticated, and really the most sophisticated is simple. And so what are the mechanisms, what are the systems what's the data that we can bring to conversations to drive meaningful change? How will we architect our work and for once we should think small, right? And this is where I go back to, we all have agency and are empowered, hopefully, in how we manage our time. And so if your calendar is 10 hours back to back, well then guess what? Like you're probably not gonna effectively manage your cognitive load. I certainly didn't. And so what is the infrastructure that you're gonna put in place around you and the support that you're gonna put in place around you to help you manage that? I think vendors are one thing, time and energy management, is another. And so we gotta start thinking with greater simplicity. We gotta start thinking from a systems lens about how we're going to manage this, VUCA world in the future.
And can you guys talk a little bit, Heather, maybe I'll go to you with this. There isn't just we talked about technology and AI and again, opportunities and challenges, but the complexities that you were just referring to are much more than that. There's obviously, the list goes on and on. We all read the headlines. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot that your employees, your customers are inundated with and have to navigate. What, Heather, what would you say are some of these shifts, the biggest ones that are really impacting the needs? Like tie draw the line for us from that and all those complexities to how the needs of your employees are actually changing.
Well, I'll start with how do we even get there? How do we start there? And so we look at kind of our the landscape of benefits. And so I'm just going to speak from kind of the benefit strategy perspective. And we look at the landscape in the technology industry for us specifically, and what shifts are we seeing out there as far as with our peers and also just within the market practices, and then where do we see the shifts of people? So the speaker before us was talking about AI engineers and machine learning, and that's a different type of population than we've had historically. So we first have to look at our demographic, and we have to also look at our geography, and then we have to look at the marketplace and what are we seeing trends outside of technology trends, and then overlay all of that to see how do we draw that line and how do we find the intersection between the people and the money and the time, and ensuring that we're hitting them all ahead of and being prepared for what's coming next, which feels almost impossible. And so we joked about the 90-year-old, though he may need the musculoskeletal solution, and the 20-year-old who's doing basketball, he does too. So luckily there's an overlay there. But then also looking at the little things, so simplicity, that was a really great point. We recently rolled out a benefit, and I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the Secure 2.0 Act, but we were able to roll out where if you have a student loan, you can and you aren't able to contribute to the 401k plan, you're missing out on the company match. And so now, if you prove to us your contribution equivalent to what it could be in the 401k, we give you the company match. And it only hits about 100 people out of our 16,000 person company, and it has had the biggest impact of any benefit. So it's thinking really simplistically and maybe needing to find more plugs versus finding something, there's not something that fits for everybody. And so it's finding those individual components, or even hearing aids. We looked at our medical plan, and for some reason they weren't fully covered. And we thought, with our population, where we have this aging demographic, which we're all talking about, right? People who are gonna be over 60, what they say, 2.1 billion people are gonna be over 60 in the year 2050. So let's have hearing aids, and then everybody's going to be working longer, and then the birth rate's dropping. And so then how do you make sure you have all of that included in all of the things that you offer, medical care as well as the different technology aspects?
Other thoughts on some of the other changes that you're seeing, the other shifts in what employees are in need of these days, not just because of the technological changes, transformations, and the cognitive load that introduces?
I think the one other shift that we're seeing a lot is, it's our EFAP. So it's the support. We have mental health support for employees, and that's been instrumental. And I think making sure people know culturally that it's okay around the world, making sure that it's welcomed, and getting the word out over and over, and having people talk to each other about that availability, because we're finding that the mental health support is really what's helping to drive a lot of employees' productivity.
Megan, I want to go to you. You touched on this already, but if you could maybe dive in a little bit deeper on the shortcomings of HSAs and FSAs. Like, how is this shifting? What do you see as sort of the new needs and how they can be met?
Yeah, so I am probably the biggest fan and advocate of both HSAs and FSAs. So I wouldn't necessarily say shortcomings. I think there's a lot of reason why employers should invest in offering those programs and educate their population on why they're hugely beneficial to them. But when we think about what they don't support, some of the things that employees wish they would support, think gym memberships. With an HSA, with an FSA, you can't actually use those dollars if you have a letter of medical necessity. Most employees don't have those for the gym. And so that's truly where maybe a gym account, a wellness account, a lifestyle reimbursement program can come in. When we think about employees maybe not leveraging their HSA, their FSA for preventative health care. They use it for those, emergency situations. They oftentimes set aside funds for what they know their expenses are going to be throughout the year for their vision, their dental, things of that nature. Whereas with a gym program or a wellness program, you're actually helping to create healthier populations proactively just by dedicating dollars to those programs that employees can spend on their own health, their own wellness. Did that answer your question, though?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to ask about, Ellie, I'll go back to you, and this is like a very specific question, but it caught my attention earlier, and that's that you're getting a lot of questions, you guys are getting a lot of questions on taking GLP-1. Can you talk a little bit, and that seems to be a new emerging trend, obviously, again, something we're all reading about. What is that, how do those conversations manifest themselves, and curious to hear from others how you're supporting employees with those
absolutely.
questions.
So this is a conversation we've been having a lot recently. And interestingly enough, a digital MSK solution is actually a great complement to someone taking a GLP-1. Because oftentimes when you take a GLP-1, you lose fat mass, but you also lose muscle mass. When you lose muscle mass, you have less support for your bones, and that can increase your frailty and then increase your risk of falls and injury and pain in the future. And so if you couple that with a strength-based program, so we actually have another product called Move, which is more full body focused. It's geared towards sedentary individuals with really low levels of pain, maybe individuals who work heavier jobs, and they want to make sure that they're strong enough to prevent having to prevent themselves from having pain in the future. And so our full body program also is a great complement to a GLP-1 or an individual who wants to lose weight, because that individual can work on getting stronger as they are losing that muscle mass associated with taking the GLP-1 to help prevent those negative side effects. And in addition, research has shown that actually individuals, when they take a GLP-1, oftentimes will gain their weight back after they stop taking the GLP-1 and their appetite returns. And so if they don't couple that GLP-1 with a program where they're geared towards learning healthy habits and becoming more active in general for the long term, they're really not going to get those long-term benefits. So with our Sword Move program, we help individuals get stronger, give them that full body program, but then also help them learn techniques to live an active lifestyle for the long term. So we'll work on those habit changes as well in the program. We do it through, our classes can be 3 minutes long to 24 minutes long, so finding something that's really doable for an individual, helping them build their healthy habits, and then, kind of sending them off to help learn what they like to do in society, joining a gym, walking, and different, lifestyle changes that they can maintain in the long term.
Fascinating. I'm curious to hear from all of you. What have you learned about just making sure that these kinds of questions and conversations are bubbling to the top, right? And that you're measuring, you're gauging, obviously something you've done for a long time, but what are some of the new ways that you're able to do that, including having tougher conversations? We mentioned mental health as well. And making sure that you're aware of those evolving needs. And Neela, maybe I'll start with you, because you work for a company that's not afraid to be out there a bit, So I assume that's a part of the culture.
Yeah, our company really tries, part of our mission is taking away stigma around certain issues and health issues. And so, internally, we definitely try to do the same thing for our employees. We meet customers where they're at, we destigmatize, we make it affordable, we make it bite-sized. We try to do that for customers, and we're doing the same thing internally for our teams as well. And so it is a very open environment where I hope people feel comfortable to come forward with any and all issues that they are experiencing and how we can better support them. And I've seen it too, so I know the proof's in the pudding.
So one of the things actually that our organ talent team has been working on, just as a part of our broader cultural transformation, is the institution of enterprise habits. And the whole notion is that, business transformation starts with human transformation. At the end of the day, it's people that we need to transform, not the actual business itself. The sort of consideration is that if you're looking to change culture, then you have to change values and you have to change beliefs, and that starts with habits. That's sort of how you make it stick. And one of the enterprise habits that we established is the check-in, which is at the start of every meeting. And I will say it has sort of taken off like wildfire. At the start of every meeting, we ask a question of, what are you feeling? And then you could ask a cheeky question like, what are you most looking forward to this weekend or whatever? But the intention is twofold. The first is to actually take inventory of what our teams are feeling and the sentiment and energy and self that they are bringing to the meeting. And then the second is to ensure that every voice in that meeting is heard. Now, in large calls, when you do the check-in, you can't always do a round table about how everyone's doing, so we put it in the chat. But we have actually called audibles and said, you know what, today doesn't seem like a good day for this meeting, right? And how many of us would love the license to show up to a meeting and go, you know what, none of us are feeling it, and so we're gonna call it. And that has been the power of the check-in. And so I think, one is it starts with little habits. And then I think the other is to do what you were talking about, right? Which is to diagnose, right? Take stock, take inventory, leverage the data that you have to make meaningful decisions about. We do the same with our customers. Why wouldn't we do the same with our employees, right? To understand what are the challenges that they face, what matters to them, and what is our roadmap to deliver on how we're going to most effectively meet those needs.
And I think to get there, sometimes it's doing the surveys and the peer conversations together within the company, and the one-on-ones as well to kind of check in, see where everyone is, and then getting the word out through those avenues of. It's really hard to have it like the employee brown bags and have the engagements for people to feel really honest. And so I think it has to start really small to get the word out more on the acceptance of where everybody is in that moment, and also being able to say, I need a mental health day. I think that's really important, and everybody being able to be really acceptant of that.
Megan, Ellie, in your cases, it's more listening to the customers, but how are you making sure that you're doing that as their needs are evolving?
So all of our customers have dedicated account management regardless of size. And so in addition to that, they have access to an administrative dashboard where they can look at data and metrics around how their programs are running, including claims activity. So they can see where employees are spending their benefit dollars. They can see if an employee's claim is denied, then to look at their data to see if they ever want to change the program in the future based off of what they're seeing. And then our customer success managers, of course, review that with them, get their feedback. Every interaction we have with their employees too, we're hearing back from them, how that interaction went, their overall happiness with the program, and then we're sharing those and serving those up for all of our customers so that they can make informed decisions on their programs.
Great. Ellie, last words?
Yeah, well, it's very similar for us. All of our customers or clients have a dedicated customer success manager that they'll be meeting with regularly. And then also our customers also have a dashboard which shows engagement rates, how their members are hitting metrics in the program, the amount of enrollees to really track the progress, and the net program usage.
I think we can end on the note that it's important to hear from both the 90-year-old and the 20-year-old and everybody in between. So thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you.